well-found yacht, a cap full of wind, the freedom of the sea. Add to all this the kick of competition against others who love sailing and do it well, and you have the sport I enjoy more than anything else in the world, ocean racing. It's a sport both severe and seductive at the same time. It can be gentle, it can be tough. Its uncertainty is a big attraction. And in this stormy, uncertain summer of 1974, 1 week of ocean racing in strong winds won the attention of the whole world. This was the battle for the 1-ton cup. It was fought out between Cherbourg, the Solent and Torquay. It ended in victory for Britain, and 2 of the boats that played a part in this rare international success were called Gumboots and the Golden Apple. The Golden Apple, owned by Hugh Coveney and designed by New Zealander Ron Holland, was built and launched at Cork in April this year, and so carried all Ireland's hopes to sea with her. Easy to spot with varnished topsides and teak decks, her crew included the owner, the designer, and her sailmaker from Ulster, John McWilliam. They were as enthusiastic a bunch of Irishmen as you would find anywhere. The biggest sailing event in Britain this year is undoubtedly the 1-ton cup. It's attracted 33 entries from all over the world. It's a series of ocean races for level-rated boats. There's no handicap, and it means that the first boat home is the winner. There are 5 races, 3 of them around 30-mile courses just offshore from Torquay, and the other 2 are fairly long ocean races, one 150 miles and the other 260. But it's the 200 people who've come here to take part in this event who are the real enthusiasts of sailing. For many of them, this will mark the epoch of a year's endeavours. For many others, too, their livelihood will depend on the outcome of this event, for they are the boat builders, the designers, the spar makers, and the sail makers. How class-conscious is the ocean racing crowd? From the crew of Gumboots, Richard Cray Osborne.
There are 3 owners to our boat. One of them is the boat builder who built it, and his brother who's a doctor, and another man who's a farmer. And then there's myself, who is a publisher and writer, and then there's a Eurobond broker, and a man who works for a sailmaker, and an American who spends all his life cruising and racing all around the world.
The 4th of the 5-race series, America Jane breaks away from the pack at the starting mark on a blustery July Monday morning. It's an Olympic course set 10 miles offshore. Seal 3, a Bob Miller design from Hong Kong, winner of the Sydney Hobart race, was a favourite for the long-distance part of the series, if the wind blew hard. The New Zealand challenge was led by this chartered boat, Hattie 4, owned and skippered by Chris Buzade, who's won the 1-ton cup for New Zealand twice. Hattie 4 was tipped for outright victory in the contest this year. A close brush within minutes of the start for Hattie 4 and her sister ship Solent Saracen, one of the 5 boats in the British team, who were hoping for a first ever victory in home waters. 20 of our top ocean racing crews competed over 4 weekend trials for the 5 places allowed to Britain, and the selection of Solent Saracen by the Royal Ocean Racing Club was something of a surprise. All the same, she would finish the contest 6th. All the previous 3 races had been sailed in light to moderate breezes, and Golden Apple did not seem to relish the strong wind and lumpy sea of this 4th contest, dropping from 4th to 10th overall. Seaworthiness and crew's skill were now put to the test. Never before had there been racing as close as this on such a big scale. Boat builder George Stead had high tension designed in such a way that he could build her himself at his own yard. This made her just about the cheapest of the 33 competitors off Torquay, but she lacked nothing. Most of the other owners forked out £30,000 or so and took whatever their designer and builder said was good for them. In close company, Bruce Banks' Windsprite and the Swedish Victoria. In the one-ton cut, because there is no handicapping and the yachts must all conform to a level-rated formula, racing means everyone's speed is about the same, and around a short 27-mile course like this, there's only 10 minutes between first and last at the finish, and the first across the line is always the winner. Here, America Jane sails parallel with Victoria. The one-ton cuppers may look very different. They can vary in displacement from about 2 to 7 tons, and in length overall from 34 to 39 feet. But there's not much in it in terms of performance, and so good crewing is the clinching factor. On a beat to windward with tacks every few minutes, it's not just quick action, but the smoothness in moving about the boat which counts most. Sail trimming is important and usually done well on this American boat, the Magic Twanger. King of Prussia on the stern is the name of her owner's hotel. Wind never stays the same from one moment to the next, and getting the right camber into the sails and setting them at the right angle to the wind to get the most power from them is where the skill comes in. Crews sit over the side using their own weight to stop the boat from heeling. The rules say that their bodies must not be outside the lifelines, but it doesn't say anything about arms and legs. The first beat to windward often settles the outcome of these short 27-mile events. The leader, here it is the Magic Twanger, has all the advantages. She needs a smart spinnaker hoist to add a couple of knots in speed and get clear wind on the second leg. In fact, Twanger got her spinnaker up and drawing quickly, but she was not to be the pacemaker much longer. Round the windward mark, Gumboots was close to Twanger. Jeremy Rogers and his well-drilled team were second on points at this stage and needed to get ahead. Both Gumboots and Twanger were designed by the American Doug Peterson, but the British boat represented his very latest thinking and had the edge. Further back in the fleet, Golden Apple's crew try to recover from an indifferent first leg. Their eyes strain hard, looking at the light nylon sail to make sure it doesn't collapse or is sheeted too hard. At the second mark, the wind has moderated a little, and Magic Twanger is still in front. Behind her and closing fast is Gumboots. Her jibe is a model for the less experienced. All the practice earlier in the summer now pays off. Good crews like Gumboots make it all look so easy. Last year's winner, Idra, 3 years old and still capable of getting in with the newer boats, joins the melee round the mark. By the end of the day, Gumboots had overtaken the Twanger, then faced a challenge from her sister ship, Hattie 4. But Rogers held the lead to the finish, helped no doubt by a tear in Hattie's mainsail, which made her carry a small reef for the rest of the race. Jeremy Rogers and Gumboots had set the press office typewriters going the previous weekend by dropping out of the 150-mile offshore race to pick up a family whose yacht had caught fire and sunk. One of the big stories of this championship has been the rescue which took part in the 150-mile offshore race. A yacht exploded, caught fire and sank in the path of the race, and 6 of the competitors went to her aid. The yacht Gumboots took on board all 7 survivors and had to pull out of the race. And if you've any doubt what sort of people go sailing, here's a telegram which tells you. It's from the 7 who were rescued by Gumboots, and it reads, "We're overwhelmed to learn of all the people concerned in helping us last Sunday. Will you please extend our most sincere thanks and gratitude to all those involved sailing? Our children are critical of the boat. Could you please arrange the hire of gumboots for a couple of weeks? Gumboots or the Golden Apple. I don't suppose the kids would mind either. Both are examples of the resourcefulness and talent that are needed to run an ocean racing yacht.
Okay, let's go. Fast now. That's good.
That's good.
Beat you to it.
What did Golden Apple's owner, Hugh Coveney, think about the one-ton cup and the value of level rating for yachts?
Well, the one-ton cup competition, I think, is the beginnings of something which I hope will develop, because there's something basically wrong with, to me anyway, with a lot of yachts of vastly different size racing together and hoping to get equal racing on the basis of handicapping. The one-ton cup, and indeed all half-ton and quarter-ton cup, is the first real effort to have ocean racing on a boat-for-boat basis. And I think if the sport is to grow in widespread appeal and that sort of thing, that it's really much more simple to understand 20 or 30 boats going to the start with the same kind of speed, and the one who finishes first is the winner. I mean, one doesn't have horse racing with the one finishing a day before another and expecting to hold the public interest. And the handicapping of yachts has become so sophisticated that very often one finishes and the result is not announced for a day later, and this really takes some of the interest out of it, I think. I think the level racing it's got a great future in ocean racing.
But because it's so specialised, one-ton racing makes the boats obsolete almost as soon as they're launched. Could Golden Apple, for example, win next year? Her designer, Ron Holland.
I think not, in fact. I think that ideally next year in Newport there probably will be more wind. It won't be much, but there'll be more wind which will favour a slightly bigger boat than this.
So that, in fact, you can say that this is a scrap boat at the end of the 1 year as far as one-ton cup racing is concerned.
That's a devastating statement to make, and I hate to agree with it, but it's almost true. Unless the next year was going to be in an area where there was a more lighter wind. I mean, we may analyse Newport, Rhode Island, and decide that, well, it never hardly goes over 12 knots. Okay, then we'd be in good shape. We might have to wait 2 years, for instance, to get the conditions this boat was designed for. But then in 2 years, we've probably learned something about the design characteristic that would make the boat basically minutely inferior.
What did he think was the ideal one-ton cup design?
The important factors, I think, are a boat that is medium in size, very good sail area for the size of the boat, meaning it has a big engine relative to the power that's needed to push it through the water, and deep draft. The deeper the draft, the more grip the boat has on the water.
Golden Apple grips the water well, and she's also comfortable. More than one can say for some of the yachts competing at Torquay. One-ton rules encourage designers to leave out the comforts taken for granted on a family cruiser, but there are exceptions. This is one of them. Seal 3, a Bob Miller design from Hong Kong. Her English skipper, John Oakley, explains why he thinks it's important in racing to be well appointed down below.
It's an open plan so that you can have all the sails laid out down below and you can stop them. The other boats, which are smaller and perhaps more compact inside, they really have to stop the sails on deck, and if it's blowing it makes life difficult. It's got the galley and the chart table, where all the navigation is done, in the centre of the boat. This gives the least amount of movement because that's where the boat pivots. It also keeps the chart table dry and the cook dry because it's well away from the main hatch. Normally, most of the boats' cockpits come up to about here, and then when they're going to windward, the water comes over, the spray that comes over comes down the hatch and it soaks the chart table and what have you. So the cook and the navigator both being able to do their job in comfort makes life a lot more easier on board the boat. And for instance, coming up to the finishing line after 4 days, the boats that have difficulty in having hot meals and perhaps have difficulty in navigating, A, might not be coming to the right place, and B, they might be tired and fatigued, and that's when the mistakes occur, and that's when you win or lose races. People go for maximum sail area, minimum weight, and they strip the boat out completely. They perhaps the rules say you've got to have a toilet, you've got to have a gas stove, and you've got to have a navigation table. And basically, that's what the boats consist of. And perhaps there's a few pipe cots just to sleep in. And it is pretty uncomfortable. You have to be very hardy and very keen to overcome that sort of discomfort.
Discomfort indeed on the morning of the final race for the crew of the American yacht Terrorist. She had broken the top of her metal mast 5 days earlier. Owner Al Castle had then flown to California to collect a new top section, and the mast was put together at Brixham in time for this 260-mile battle in the English Channel. A fresh northwesterly breeze was blowing, and even Terrorist must have disliked waiting around for over an hour because of a delayed start. New Zealander Chris Bouzade puts up a protest flag on Hattie 4. He was in position on time, but many crews were late coming out of the harbour. Officials said a shifting wind across the course was the reason for postponing the start, but the punctual crews didn't believe it, and feelings were as strong as the wind. It's just a few minutes now before the start of the 260-mile final race in this one-ton Cup series. There's been a delay of about an hour, and already some of the competitors are getting a bit edgy over that. It's blowing somewhere near 20 knots of breeze, and they're going to have a rough ride in this race, which can take up to 48 hours. They're off on a 5-mile leg towards the Devon shore to sort them out before the long run across to Cherbourg. Then it's back across the English Channel to the Owers Light off Selsey Bill, and then south of the Isle of Wight to Torquay. If the wind stays like this, they'll have a wet ride, but an exciting one. The crew will soon settle into a watch pattern, and those off watch will try to get some rest. They're going to be at sea for 2 days and nights, eating, sleeping, and racing their boat all the time, trying to get that extra fraction of a knot of speed. At times, all hands will be needed, but whenever rest is possible, they will snatch it. The Magic Twanger's crew won't sit there all the time. Those resting below will sleep on the windward side where their weight has the best effect. If the boat tacks, they'll change bunks to the other side. When seconds count, the good crew does all it can to save them. High Tension can take the one-ton Cup if she wins this final race, and if she also can beat Gumboots and Hattie by more than 2 places. Her crew are doing all they can. This is the sort of weather in which she goes best. Plenty of breeze and a short, choppy sea. Gumboots goes fast on the first leg. Her crew are well settled down, but they may have made a tactical error, heading the way they are in a shifting wind. The first buoy was towed away by a trawler, and a mark boat replaces it. It seems that Al Castle's jet trip to California has had its reward. Terrorist leads the fleet at the weather mark, and an excellent spinnaker hoist sees her well on her way. High Tension is next, and she hoists her spinnaker without bothering to tie it up lightly in elastic bands which break as the sail fills. Hattie 4 gets it right. Her hoist and set is the fastest of the fleet. From here they will tend to spread out, but the first mark is where the action is. An overlap at the mark can give a boat a tactical advantage at the start of the next leg, and all 31 skippers are trying their hardest to get one over on the others. This race counts double points, double the incentive to do well. Gumboots lost out badly on the first leg and will have her work cut out to get back near the front. But she has not done as badly as Golden Apple, who tore a jib as the starting gun fired and had to change it for another. As a result, she was last to round the first mark and set a course for France. The hour's light, 24 hours later. Chartreuse is well up in the fleet, but all is not well on board. Skipper David Thomas is ill, and later the boat retires to put him ashore and into hospital at Poole. As these action scenes on board Chartreuse plainly show, ocean racing can be unpleasant. It can be cold, wet and miserable. Hard slogs into the wind seem endless, and you can never let your concentration wander from getting the most from the boat. But when the sun shines, it's dry, warm and invigorating. The sleigh rides down the waves never seem long enough. Yet as this summer of storms around our coast has shown all too vividly, even tough ocean racers can come to grief. Barring terrorists' mast, however, the one-ton Cup was accident-free right up to the final gun. Gumboots came home to Torquay the winner of the one-ton Cup, the first British victory since the contest began in 1965. This success by a standard Contessa 35 would mean a full order book for months ahead for skipper Jeremy Rogers and his boat building business at Lymington. I asked him what his next move would be.
Well, as a boat builder, of course, to produce these boats in larger numbers. And, we're bringing out a new sort of deck layout to make a cruiser race from it.
So a pair of gumboots go in triumph to the masthead. This one-ton Cup, so named because it was first raced in 1899 by yachts with keels weighing a ton, the great silver cup at the Royal Torquay Yacht Club now belonged to Jeremy Rogers and his merry men from Lymington. No wonder the champagne flowed free at breakfast time on this fine July morning for the winning crew. The Golden Apple reached Torquay 7th, about half an hour behind Gumboots. After a disastrous start with torn sails, the luck of the Irish had turned. Shrewd navigation and the intangible asset of being a happy boat had brought the Apple back with the leaders. She was part of a fleet worth more than £1 million, a good finisher in a contest now ranking high in world status, as important perhaps as the Admiral's Cup. After the race, I asked Golden Apple's owner, Hugh Coveney, how much the torn sail had affected them.
Well, psychologically there was a certain air of depression aboard. And when you go around the weather mark last, when we'd really been fairly well up all week, that was a new experience for us. And I think the whole crew showed a lot of character in fighting back through 25 places or more. And we're pretty happy. I think we're happier than we've been on the days when we looked like winning.
But do you think you lost anything by not having that sail to use again?
Oh, we actually stitched it en route. Not looking 100%, but we've been using it today, in fact. John McWilliam, who's also a sailmaker as well as our navigator, he and Harold Cudmore spent, well, every time I asked them, they said it would be another hour, but it was about 6 hours. And we really did need it, and that was a great help, I think.
Only one thing still bugged me. Why the name Golden Apple for a yacht?
There's a poem by Yeats, and the closing two lines of it are the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. And my wife and I are rather fond of that poem. So it seems a crazy name, but the colour, I think, maybe as well is kind of golden, and the poem is nice. It's a dreamy sort of thing. Maybe we're all dreamers in this yachting business.
Okay, we're sailing right through these guys now. One guy on. Pull forward, cheat on.
Right, I'll watch the trim now, John. So.
Keep right on the edge. Keep right. Lead on. Pull forward. Better go right on edge.
How's that, John? Yeah, draw the main in.
Make a sit right. Pull the shoe.
Easy. Hold it there. You're just on edge.